You know, SLC Punk is a movie I've loved forever and honestly has only grown stronger as I've got older. And I think that's because the film's message only becomes more potent with age and resonates harder as the audience grows because it's a film about growth. Kinda. Matthew Lillard plays our protagonist Steve-O, and you know, anybody who stuck around knows I adore this man, and I think he's truly a generational talent that has been long wasted. He's my favourite part of the first Scream movie, and his casting as Shaggy in the live action Scooby-Doo films, as well as the following voice acting roles he got, are some of the best casting decisions in cinematic history. The guy just brings it every single time, and I love him for that. Steve-O is a true 1980s punk, hairstyle and all. He's the film's narrator and takes us on the journey of himself and his best friend Bob, also known as Heroin Bob. Steve-O is an interesting character study because he has an ironic way of living. See, Lillard tackles this challenge of being cocky, obnoxious, and honestly kind of pretentious about the punk lifestyle, but he also has to be likable, endearing, and moving enough for us to root for him the whole time and stay with him on his journey, which is in the end a journey of self-discovery. It's a coming-of-age movie wrapped up in a pro-anarchist blanket. You know, I say he has an ironic way of living because of the very thing his character points out in the Why They Fight breakdown. Steve-O is all about rebellion and anarchy, being anti-system, but everything they do, the hair, the style, the music, the people they fight, and the general lifestyle seems to be lived simply because that's the way they have conformed within the lifestyle. It's just an agreeable image that they all abide by. See, they're fighting against a system, and in that fight they've kind of created their own, and if they even teeter outside that system, they're called a poser and then outcasted, despite the fact that that's the exact kind of conformism they're fighting against. This kind of punk lifestyle is organised anarchy, and organised anarchy is war, and war is power, power is government, government is a system. But of course, this film isn't anti-punk or a critique on the punk lifestyle, it's more so just very pro-free thinking, pro-individualism. Salt Lake City is the location of the film, and as mentioned by our narrator, it isn't a massively punk-orientated place. Bob and himself were the first and only punks there for a long time. It's a decently Christian and well put together place. Not a lot going on, but nothing overtly awful either. Steve-O especially comes from a fairly affluent family. His dad is a Harvard graduated lawyer, for God's sake, and though Steve-O is seemingly anti-establishment, he finds himself being especially gifted and well educated. He does well in school despite not really wanting to. He has a strangely good relationship with his successful parents, which results in the rebellious nature of the punk scene only going so far with him. His parents are the image of everything he claims to be against, and yet he admittedly is a lot more like his dad than he even knows. Because the ultimate irony of this movie is that Steve-O himself is a poser. He makes it a point to talk about who's real and who isn't and for what reasons, and in the end, all of it is bullshit. All of it is an established order, therefore not punk. And what actually is punk is what Steve-O becomes in the end, which is his own person. He says that you can do more damage from inside the system than outside of it, and you know, maybe he doesn't believe that, maybe he does, maybe he wants to be a lawyer and do good for the reasons of fixing the system or whatever reasons, but the point is that it doesn't really matter at all why he's doing it, because either way he's at least doing it for himself. And being yourself, dressing how you want, doing what you want, no matter what that is punk. Because punk is about evolution, moving forward, but again, an irony of that is that the punk scene is very much addicted to the past, about the origins of the punk scene, about liking things before they were popular, but that's just the poser nature disguised again. It's easy as a teenager to say fuck authority, fuck the government, fuck the system, but the sad reality is, one day you're going to be an adult. And fuck the man no longer applies to just school teachers. It applies to the real government. It applies to the tax man. And this is when you realize that you either join the system, get a job, pay your rent, buy your food and be a functioning member of society, but rebelling in your own little ways, like taking extra minutes for lunch at work or bumping the train every now and then. Or you let it consume you. You turn to crime and either die a nobody in an attempt to be a martyr or spend your life surrounded by concrete and prison guards. Because unfortunately, that's life. But you know, as somebody who was not so orderly as a teenager, I was kind of a fucked up student, a proper teacher's nightmare. I had to grow up and find a job one day, which I have, and it's not impossible to find some happiness in that. Life does reek sometimes, well, all of the time, but there's moments where you get inches of happiness. Which is the ultimate fate of Steve-O. It's quite sad that Bob's death was the real turning point that led him to this conclusion, because Bob was known as Heroin Bob for the sheer irony of it. He hated needles. In fact, he hated drugs of all kinds, and he started to live life for himself. He got a girlfriend he loved and was committed to, and then he died of an accidental overdose. And this ironic sadness leads Steve-O to realize that life isn't worth living if you're doing it for an image. Fulfill your destiny by doing what you want to do. Mike, played by Jason Segel, has this realization much earlier in the film. He never dressed or acted like the rest of the punks, but Steve-O recognized he was more punk than anyone, and it tracks because he was the first to leave the scene to go and fulfill what he thinks is his purpose, which is saving the rainforests. Because punk isn't the wardrobe or the Clash or fighting or hating on religious people. Punk is a philosophy. It's an ideology that perpetuates freedom and self-expression, which can manifest in any number of ways. So the nerd at your school that wants to be a fucking physicist and studies all day and has no real friends and gets good grades can be argued to be more punk than the guy who wears leather jackets and listens to the Ramones and has the anarchy symbol tattooed on his arm because he thinks he stands for something other than an empty image, which he doesn't. SLC Punk is perfect because it's about growing, but not growing into what you want to be or what you think you should be, but growing into who you already are. I think Roger Ebert put it best when he said, "The message isn't live this way, but look at the way you live. There's a little something there for all of us." And he's absolutely correct. We all rebel, we all grow up, we all become who we are, and we all already are who we're going to become. And I think Steve-O is the most shining example of that. Even with all the attitude and the wardrobe, he was always his father's son, and that's okay. But that's just me. What do you think? Have you seen SLC Punk? If so, let me know what you think of it. Let me know what you think of this video and whether it's a Matthew Lillard driven coming of age character study or not. As always, keep watching movies.